Hey everyone. So this time we're going to switch up the format a bit, I think, and instead I'm going to interview Drew because Drew has been for it's a guinea pig or test subject for an experiment we've been running to explore the potential of building Permaweb apps using AI. And some background context: there's been this idea in the Permaweb ecosystem for a long time of something we call the data OS. Basically, as we've been talking about with the Permaweb for a long time, one of the key things it gives us is an open shared content lake. And everyone can build user interfaces on top of that. Well, the data OS is basically the idea that what if AI built those user interfaces for us? And then everyone can share the content between many different applications and different experiences that are tailored for different people. And we think eventually where this is going to go is that all of the user interfaces that people will use will largely be improvised on the fly by AI. But as of today, Drew here has been...
I'm the resident guinea pig. Nice to meet you.
So Drew, maybe you want to tell people what you've been building.
Yes. So I've been experimenting with two main projects. One is a search engine for the Permaweb, and the other is a decentralized exchange. I have been riveted to work at Ford Research, and I'm not just saying that because my boss is standing right next to me, because sitting around experienced professional devs made me feel like I was beginning to understand where they're coming from conceptually and in terms of when they decided what project should we build, how do I scope out a project. It made me interested in learning more myself and not feeling so scared, because like, dude, coding is scary. I'd never opened up a terminal on a computer before. There's a lot of numbers there, man.
It's 10 numbers. Yeah, and error messages.
Yes.
They're all very confusing.
Yeah, they're very confusing. Yeah, getting a lot of greps, a lot of codecs. I don't know what those mean anymore, but I do marketing, right? Like I have a journalism degree. When I took math in school, my eyes glazed in the back of my head. And yet I listening to Sam talk and okay, I have this massive resource and the Permaweb, this open data lake. And then also the advent of sort of AI coding, vibe coding made me feel like I could put the two together and potentially work on something myself. And at worst case scenario, I just learned a hell of a lot, right? Like I'm finally beginning to understand a fraction of what's on these whiteboards, just a tiny fraction. But it's been an incredible journey. And so yeah, as a guinea pig, I have to say I'm enjoying my role.
Yeah, it's been pretty impressive. I remember when I first walked past your desk one time and you said, "Hey Sam, check out what I'm making." And I came over and you had like a Permaweb app. So what were the first things you built and how difficult was it as someone coming from, you said like no math background, certainly, and a journalism degree? This is, if we rewind time 3 years, say, the idea that someone with that background who hadn't like gone out and specifically learned to code could build anything on the Permaweb was like...
Not a chance.
Yeah.
Not a chance. It was, you do at this current juncture and where we are in terms of like the coding tools need to have an extreme amount of patience, because I do not have the experience, the intellectual capacity to verify what is being told to me. I often think of it as myself. It's like trying to find my way through a maze blindfolded, and there are people there, and half of them will lie to me about which direction we'll go. So you have to kind of create your own systems for ensuring that what is being described to you as being done is actually happening. And there have been so many setbacks, and it's doubly frustrating because the setback will be enormous. And it turns out the way forward could have been like a 5-minute if I just reworded the question I had posed in a slightly different manner. It quite really and truly would have saved me maybe 2 months of worth of errors. There are LLM quirks where certain models have a tendency to do one thing better than the other. Understanding, do I want to use this particular model for this task? Do I want to use the other one for that task? Can I cross-check them? and play off their different strengths. There have also been tool implementations on a very nitty gritty level where, again, back to the terminal. Terminal scares me, man. I don't like what I'm seeing here. I feel like I don't. I'm looking at like hieroglyphics. But if you don't use the terminal, I encountered through some of the coding applications, they have their own quirks. So now you're stacking quirks on top of quirks. You've got the LLMs at the very top. Then I encountered, I won't name them, but certain tools couldn't read shells very well. So it was telling me one thing, which I would discuss with the LLM coder. And the LLM coder, through no fault of its own, was taking me down an entirely different path just because the outputs weren't being read. And I couldn't read it myself, right? So I had no idea. So then one thing I will say that I am a position is I'm able to talk to very smart people like Sam, and then Sam said, dude, you just got to go to a terminal, man. You just and that allowed me to bypass some of those in-between errors and be able to, now it's just LM code. And so if something's going wrong, I know it's either the LLM or what is already being built. But you can make progress. If I had to give any tips for people who, like me, had no clue what to do, you need a baseline kickoff document that describes the order of operations the program should proceed to get itself established. Like where is your GitHub repository? And I'm skipping steps that took me weeks. How the F do you set up a GitHub? I don't know. How do you set up a personal access token? I don't know. If you want to spawn your process onto AO, that's one thing. I decided for various reasons to make a server. How do you set up an AWS server? Like I was joking with Sam before we recorded this. I've nuked mine. I nuked it yesterday. I've nuked my server 3 times. I had to rebuild it entirely from scratch. So you need a kickoff document. Then I need 2 more documents. I need a project overview. You got to find the right balance between like high level enough that you give the coder, which is very smart. We're talking Codex 5.1. It's really good. Gives it some wiggle room to make some spot decisions, but also enough structure that it's not just like, I don't know, it's going to town. And then on AM Arweave, I've had to create this is what AO Hyperbeam is, because I found that it's too novel. It's too new. Like I'm sure if I had 1,000 years, it would eventually figure it out, but I only got 1,000 years. And so every time I kick off with those 3 dots, here's the server access, here's the GitHub. This is what we're doing. I usually copy the last coding session's recommendations. That's the initial. Here's the project overview. And also this is how AO should work, especially since we're transitioning from LegacyNet to mainnet. That was actually a source that I've now realized is that
Docs.
it was trying to do things like sometimes I start a task and say, oh, I want to try to do things more for the dry run LegacyNet process. And then I would start again, oh, I want to do the Hyperbeam. Now I say this is how we're doing things. And it saved a lot of time.
Yeah, that makes sense. Interesting. What I'm picking up and what I've sort of seen as a progression as you've been building these things is it seems like now it's still quite difficult, but it's definitely possible as someone that can't code at all to build like full services.
Oh, it is entirely possible. And I will say that the amount of learning I'm experiencing through trial and error is being accrued. For example, when I joked about nuking my AWS server, the first time I did that, that was like a week of me figuring out how to rebuild. I did it yesterday and I fixed it in an hour. So the initial process, and so I started this in August, it's November right now. First month and a half was kind of hellish. However, now I am seeing incredible progress because I've learned the quirks. I've also learned to some degree basic coding no-nos. I've had to, I've gone into the AWS a lot. Like I know what it looks like when I'm on the right track and what it doesn't. And also I learned about AO. Like you can learn about AO by doing what I do in my day job, which is marketing. But to some degree, when you're like, hey, it's a verifiable, compute, that's too high level. But now when I'm like, I was troubleshooting on Hyperbeam nodes, like you can make your node operator wallet the schedule location. What the F does that mean? Now I understand that, and that knowledge accrues. So yeah, like buckle up for a wild month and a half, 2 months. But if you can make it past that initial hump, you can really make progress.
It's interesting because you describe it as like it's pretty rough at the beginning, but like no one asked you to do this. I was surprised when you had decided of your own accord to start building stuff, but it was evidently not so annoying that it was discouraging. And that was even you started, I think, if I'm not mistaken, like copying and pasting stuff from ChatGPT, the
Yeah.
web UI. Yeah,
Woo!
yeah,
Woo. Yeah, no, that's how I started. Because it's like I do actually think there's a couple of reasons here. One is if you've been in crypto a long time, you've heard like, yo, man, we're changing the world. This is totally novel. And so you get a little numb to it. I have to admit that being at Ford, I was like, this might be the time that this might actually be the world changing thing. Like I've heard people describe them saying, I've made this world changing thing and it's been a bunch of bullshit. And I was actually sitting here like, Sam might actually be doing it. Like you actually convinced me. So one, I want to get in on that. You know what I mean? Like being on the next phase of the internet, that's huge. And then two is like the coding world has always seemed so gated and
yeah,
being on the ability to get in and experience that, even though I don't have a technical background, I can't say I particularly still to this day want to like ever find myself like going through little lines of code. Um, you'd be an idiot not to. So to at least give it a try. I mean, it's not going to be for everyone, but if you're not at least testing the waters, I just think that's crazy.
yeah. I think I think we're at a fundamental pivot point where we're moving from the web being structured as full of applications that are made by a select few and distributed extremely widely to what's closer to like the user-generated content world that we see on platforms like YouTube, but applied to the applications themselves. Now, like, and what I find so exciting about this is that I've often wondered precisely what the numbers are on this, but I would expect somewhere in the range of 90 to 97% of the people watching this video are probably not coders. They're just people that are interested in the technology. Yeah, and they likely have enough technical background that they've used, crypto wallets, which is not like a zero thing.
Yeah.
It's relatively involved. And that I would say is enough now to become a Permaweb app developer.
Oh yeah, dude. If
Yeah.
if you can set up a crypto wallet, you will now have enough of the patience and just general common sense to develop a full blown app.
Yeah. And so now all those people that, over the years, I've seen so many people say, hey, why doesn't someone build this or that? And it's like, they're all great ideas, but like, there's just only so many development hours and not so many developers. But now that table has completely flipped. And, that I think there's a lot of things that we can do to make it very, very easy for people to onboard, and they shouldn't have to like set up their own development environment or touch a terminal or anything like that. So we have a lot of ideas about how to go that direction, and kudos to Greg from Only Arweave and Longview Labs, who's really been like pioneering, hey, what does it look like to go from like just a web UI to like, boom, now there's a new a web app that spat out of it. Yeah, I think there's a ton of stuff we can do in that area to make it easier, but like the tide has changed now.
The tide has completely changed, and I like you were talking about a little bit ago about why you started Arweave, which is that you were looking at the world and you were like seeing surveillance states. You're seeing a trend that made you want to impact the world for the better. And when you started it, only someone with your experience and know-how would be able to do that. It's not like I'm going to be able to recreate Arweave, but if in my small way can kind of contribute to that goal of like before I was powerless, what the fuck was I gonna do? I don't know, part of my life. Like what was I going to do? I could vote once every 4 years, okay. But like, one of the first things I glommed onto was a Permaweb search engine. There's incredible stuff on Arweave, like Ukrainian war documents that were censored. Um, if I would be if I and everyone else out there watching that wanted to, in their own small way, contribute to making the world a better place, we now have an outlet to do that. And it's cool as hell, man.
Yeah, and I think, once it's all packaged together in like a easy to access form, which really shouldn't be very difficult. I
Man,
mean, everything is always harder in reality
mm,
than you imagine. But largely speaking, it's kind of on rails. It's pretty obvious what needs to be done there. Once that's the case, I'm pretty hopeful that we can make it so that like anyone that's watching this, you can go from like zero to full web application that's doing something like what did you call it? Google, not
Droogle.
Droogle. Nice, Droogle.
Don't sue me, Google.
Oh, geez. Yeah, you could go from zero to Drupal in like 10 to 30 minutes.
Yeah.
And then eventually down the line, I think these UIs, they just become like you ask the LLM for what you want to see
Yeah.
and just makes it for you.
Yeah.
You're like, okay, make it purple.
Yeah.
And it just goes and does it.
Yeah.
We're very, very close to that now. It's really, really exciting. Well, thank you for being our guinea pig and telling us about it.
Well, thank you. Thanks for watching.
See you guys.